let's not get ahead of ourselves, Stephanie. It was a team effort. That's what my boss, Mark, said to me, his voice slick with the kind of false modesty that only truly arrogant people can master. He'd just finished a 45-minute presentation to the entire executive board, a presentation where he used my slides, my data, my architectural diagrams, and my entire migration strategy to paint himself as some kind of digital messiah. My name was mentioned once, in passing, on the final slide titled Acknowledgements, nestled unceremoniously between the IT help desk and the company that stocks the vending machines. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even let my smile falter as he patted me on the shoulder in that patronizing way of his, the way you'd pat a golden retriever for not chewing on the furniture. I just gave a slow, deliberate nod, the kind of nod you make when you're mentally calculating the precise trajectory of a missile and confirming the target lock. But let's rewind, because a story like this doesn't start with the explosion. It starts with the slow, meticulous process of building the bomb. For the past 6 months, my life had been a waking nightmare called the Innovate Dynamics platform migration. We were moving our largest, most valuable client, Innovate Dynamics, from a legacy system cobbled together with digital duct tape and the ghost of a good idea, to a new, cloud-based architecture. On paper, it was a flagship project. In reality, it was the corporate equivalent of performing open-heart surgery on a moving train during a hurricane. And I was the only surgeon on board. The project was a digital graveyard, haunted by the ghosts of senior engineers who had wisely fled for saner, higher-paying jobs months ago. They left behind a mess of undocumented APIs, spaghetti code that looked like a Jackson Pollock painting, and databases so poorly designed they seemed to actively resent the data they were supposed to hold. For 6 months, I was the one working until 2 a.m., fueled by stale coffee and pure spite, untangling terabytes of corrupted client data. I became a data necromancer, raising critical information from the dead, while the rest of my so-called team was busy debating the merits of a new kombucha tap in the break room or participating in mandatory, fun, team-building exercises that involved building toothpick towers. Mark, my manager, possessed the technical expertise of a garden gnome. His primary contribution to the project was forwarding me emails with the subject line, FYI, and scheduling agonizingly long synergy sessions where he'd draw incomprehensible diagrams on a whiteboard with a squeaky marker. He once called a 4-hour emergency meeting to address a critical system alert, only for me to discover, after 30 minutes of his panicked monologue, that he was looking at a staging server that had been deprecated 6 months prior. I had to gently point this out in front of everyone, which earned me a week of his passive-aggressive silent treatment. Yet here he was, standing in front of the board, taking a victory lap for a race I'd run entirely on my own, barefoot, uphill in the snow. After the applause for his brilliant leadership and visionary oversight finally died down, I caught him in the hallway. I wasn't naive. I didn't expect a parade. I wasn't even asking for the bonus he had undoubtedly already earmarked for a new set of golf clubs. I was asking for what I had earned. The senior data architect title I'd been performing the duties of for the better part of a year, and the salary that came with it. I came prepared. I had a 3-page document in my hand, a concise summary outlining every critical bug I'd fixed, every all-nighter I'd pulled, and every 5-alarm fire I'd single-handedly extinguished while he was managing stakeholder expectations. He took the document from my hand and glanced at it like it was a menu he had no intention of ordering from. He didn't even read the first line. "Look, Stephanie," he sighed, adjusting his ridiculously expensive silk tie. "You did good work, solid work. We all appreciate your contributions." He handed the paper back to me. But the senior title, that's a big step. It requires a certain big-picture perspective, strategic thinking. It's not just about being in the weeds and fixing code. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it almost made me laugh. I was the big picture. I was the architect, the engineer, and the damn janitor of this entire project. He was just the guy who put his name on the front of the building. "Let's circle back on this after Q4, he said, already turning to walk away. "We'll see how the platform performs under pressure." And then, as his parting shot, he delivered the line that lit the fuse. It was a team effort, after all. We all rise together. Right, the team. The team that once spent an entire afternoon locked out of the primary server because no one else knew the root password. I had changed for security reasons and documented meticulously in the shared drive they never bothered to read. The team that thought data cleansing was something you did with a Clorox wipe on your monitor. The team that, when faced with a critical database failure, had a collective brainstorming session that resulted in the suggestion, "Have we tried turning it off and on again?" I walked back to my desk, the ghost of his condescending applause still echoing in my ears. I didn't storm out. I didn't fire off a rage-fueled email to HR because I knew HR wasn't there to protect me. They were there to protect the company from me. I just sat down, took a deep breath, opened a new blank spreadsheet, and started creating a new file. I named it Contingency Plan, XLSX. By the way, if you've ever had a boss take credit for your 80-hour work week, or been told to be a team player, while single-handedly keeping the team from imploding, then you know exactly the cold, quiet fury that was brewing inside me. And if you do, maybe you could take a second to hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to build something here, a little community for everyone who's ever been the smartest person in a room full of people who get paid more than them. Every click is a little vote of confidence, a small act of solidarity. Okay, back to the story of how I stopped being a team player and started being the one who owned the whole damn stadium. That night, I didn't go home and binge-watch a show about powerful women. I went home and decided to become one. I poured a glass of cheap wine that tasted like regret, opened my personal laptop, and began a different kind of migration. My own. My contingency plan wasn't just a list of grievances, it was an arsenal. I spent the next 2 weeks in a state of quiet, focused fury. By day, I was Stephanie, the reliable, head-down junior analyst, nodding in meetings, fixing bugs no one else understood, and being pleasantly invisible. By night, my apartment became a war room. I was a digital archaeologist, digging through years of project files, support ticket archives, email chains, and Slack logs. I created a secure, encrypted folder on my personal hard drive with subfolders meticulously labeled: evidence, receipts, negligence, indictment. I documented everything. The time I discovered and patched a critical security vulnerability in the authentication module that could have exposed all of Innovate Dynamics' customer data. A bug Mark had dismissed in an email as a minor UI glitch that's probably just a caching issue. I saved the email thread as a PDF. The time I had to manually rebuild a corrupted billing database from raw transaction logs over a holiday weekend. A catastrophic crisis caused by a server patch Mark had personally approved without consulting me because he wanted to show initiative. I saved the server logs and the frantic, time-stamped chat messages from the finance department. I compiled a detailed 100-page dossier, complete with code snippets, architectural diagrams I'd drawn on my own time, and highlighted chat logs. It wasn't a resume, it was a legal case. It was the big-picture perspective he thought I lacked. I didn't shotgun my resume out to every company on LinkedIn. That's what amateurs do, spraying and praying. I was a sniper. I had one target only: Innovate Dynamics. They were the ones who suffered daily from my company's staggering incompetence. They were the ones who, unknowingly, benefited from my late-night heroics. They knew the system was a fragile house of cards, and I was the only thing stopping it from collapsing into a pile of splinters. They just didn't know my name. Yet, the opportunity came from the most mundane of places: a low-level support ticket. A persistent data sync error had been plaguing one of their most important executive reporting dashboards for weeks. My team had kicked it around like a dented can, labeling it low priority and blaming it on everything from client-side network latency to solar flares. It was lazy, deflective nonsense, and I knew it. One Saturday morning, fueled by 2 pots of coffee and a burning sense of injustice, I dug in. It wasn't a network issue. It was a fundamental flaw in the original data schema, a deep-seated error that was causing cascading failures across their entire analytics suite. I spent 8 hours writing a complex, multi-stage script to patch it, push the fix, and then, instead of just writing "fixed," I closed the ticket with a detailed 7-paragraph explanation of the root cause, the solution I implemented, and recommendations for preventing similar issues in the future. I didn't think anyone would even read it. I was wrong. 2 days later, an email landed in my inbox. It wasn't from Mark. It wasn't from anyone at my company. The sender was David Chen, Director of Operations at Innovate Dynamics. The subject line was simple and chilling: data sync issue. My RT hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. His email was short and to the point. Stephanie, my team flagged your notes on ticket 774. No one on our end, or yours, has ever been able to articulate that problem so clearly. We've been complaining about these ghost errors for over a year. It seems you're the one who actually knows how this system works. Are you free for a discreet chat sometime this week? Discreet, my new favorite word. I booked a dentist appointment for the following Thursday. Mark just grunted his approval from behind his monitor, not even looking up from the game of online golf he was probably playing. I walked into a sleek, minimalist coffee shop in a part of downtown I'd never been to, my stomach a tight knot of nerves and pure, unadulterated adrenaline. David Chen was already there, a sharp, no-nonsense man in his late 40s with intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through you. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We're in trouble, Stephanie," he said after we'd ordered. "Your company sold us a state-of-the-art platform, but what we have is a black box. It breaks in ways no one can explain, our data integrity is a constant worry, and the support we get is, well, it's a joke." I just nodded, letting him talk, sipping my water to keep my hands from shaking. "We've been watching the ticket logs for months," he continued, leaning in conspiratorially. "Most of the solutions are boilerplate nonsense. Have you tried clearing your cache? But every so often, a solution comes through that's brilliant, detailed, precise, and permanent, and every single time your name is at the bottom of it. You're the ghost in the machine, aren't you?" I allowed myself a small, tight smile. I try to be thorough. "We don't just need thorough, Stephanie," he said, his gaze intense and unwavering. "We need control. We're considering bringing the entire platform in-house, taking it over. But we can't do that without someone on the inside, someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. We don't want to hire another analyst. We want to hire the architect." I held his gaze, the coffee in my cup completely forgotten. This was bigger than a job offer. This was a coup. "We want you to lead the transition," he said, laying all his cards on the table. "Come work for us. We'll give you the title, the salary, and the resources to build a team from the ground up. Your first task will be to plan the complete, systematic takeover of the platform from your current employer." I walked out of that coffee shop feeling like I could punch through a brick wall. It wasn't just a ladder out of the junior-level hell I was trapped in. It was a battleship, and they were handing me the keys and pointing me toward the enemy fleet. I didn't accept immediately. Revenge, I was learning, is a dish best served cold, on a meticulously planned project timeline with clearly defined deliverables. I spent the next 2 weeks living a double life. By day, I was the dutiful, overlooked employee, quietly closing tickets and nodding along in Mark's pointless meetings. I was a phantom in their hallways, so consistently ignored that my presence had become invisible. At one point, in a team meeting, Mark presented a slide with a complex workflow I had designed. He explained it completely wrong, and when I tried to politely correct a critical detail, he literally held up a hand and said, "Let's not get bogged down in the technical minutiae, Stephanie. Let's stay at 30,000 feet. The entire room nodded in agreement. But by night, I was a general planning a war. I had secret Zoom calls with David and his tech leads at Innovate Dynamics. They gave me secure, read-only access to their side of the system, a level of trust my own company had never afforded me. I cross-referenced their error logs with my own secret dossier, pinpointing every vulnerability, every shortcut, every lie my company had ever told them. I wasn't just finding bugs anymore. I was mapping their entire infrastructure of incompetence. I built the transition plan, a detailed, phase-by-phase roadmap for extracting their data, severing the API connections, and rendering my old company completely obsolete. I identified every risk, every dependency, and every single point of failure. The dossier I had built for my own protection now became the foundation of my strategy to burn their kingdom to the ground. The irony was so thick I could taste it. The day I resigned was a masterclass in anticlimax. I sent the email to HR and Mark on a Friday afternoon. HR sent back an automated response with a link to an exit survey, which I promptly ignored. Mark swaggered over to my desk, leaning against the cubicle wall with a predictable smirk. "So, heard you're flying the coop," he said. "Tough market out there, Steph. Don't burn any bridges. The door here is always open, if you find you're not cut out for the big leagues." I just led my serene Mona Lisa smile. "Thanks, Mark, I'll keep that in mind." He chuckled, entirely self-satisfied, and walked away, confident he was right. Everyone comes back. I spent the afternoon packing my desk. A sad-looking succulent, a couple of technical manuals I'd bought with my own money, and a mug that said, "Trust me, I'm a professional." As I boxed them up, I forwarded the final version of my transition plan to David Chen from my personal email. The subject line was simple: Phase 1, go. Walking out of that building for the last time didn't feel sad or scary. It felt like shedding a skin. I didn't look back. Why would I? I knew I'd be back on Monday. Not as an employee, but as the consequence they never saw coming. The security guard in the lobby barely glanced at me as I walked in on Monday morning. He saw the visitor badge clipped to the lapel of my new, sharply tailored blazer and waved me through. The badge didn't say Stephanie. It said Innovate Dynamics Vendor Management. The air in the elevator was different. Or maybe I was. I wasn't slinking in at 8:57 a.m. hoping to go unnoticed. I was striding in at 9:55 a.m. for a 10:00 a.m. meeting I had called. When the elevator doors opened onto the fourth floor, the effect was immediate. A ripple of confusion spread like a virus. A few engineers I used to work with did a full-on double take. I saw one of them whisper to another, his eyes wide. I gave them a polite, professional nod and kept walking towards the glass-walled conference room at the end of the hall. The one they called the fishbowl. The one reserved for executives and visiting clients. Mark was already inside, schmoozing with two of his fellow VPs. He was laughing, leaning back in his chair, the king in his castle. He saw me through the glass and his face registered a flicker of surprise, then amusement, as if I were a food delivery person who'd gotten lost. Then he saw David Chen walking right behind me, along with two other people from Innovate Dynamics I knew were from their legal department. Mark's smile froze, cracking at the edges. We walked in. The room fell silent. I didn't take one of the side chairs along the wall, the seats reserved for note-takers and juniors. I walked to the head of the table, opposite Mark, and set my laptop down with a quiet, definitive click. "Stephanie," Mark said, his voice strained with confusion. "What are you doing here? I thought you." "Good morning, Mark," I said, my voice even and clear, resonating with a newfound authority. "I believe you all know David Chen from Innovate Dynamics. We're here for the Q3 vendor review." Mark visibly relaxed, forcing a laugh that sounded like tearing cardboard. "Oh, right, of course. Well, welcome back in a way. Had I known you were consulting for them, I would have rolled out the red carpet." He gestured around the room with a magnanimous sweep of his arm. "As you know, the platform is more stable than ever. A real team effort." I met his gaze across the polished mahogany table. I didn't smile. "That's one of the things we're here to discuss." I opened my laptop and connected it to the large screen on the wall. The first slide that appeared was the Innovate Dynamics logo, and below it, 2 lines of text. Project Nightingale, Platform Insourcing and Vendor Transition. Lead, Stephanie Walsh, Director of Platform Integration, Innovate Dynamics. I let the slide hang there for a moment, a silent, digital executioner. I watched the color drain from Mark's face. I saw the VPs exchange panicked, confused looks. The word director seemed to pulse on the screen, each letter a nail in his professional coffin. "Director," Mark stammered, his bravado crumbling into dust. I don't understand." "It's a new role, Mark," I said calmly, clicking to the next slide. It was a high-level timeline, a 6-month plan detailing the complete migration of all data, services, and operational control from his company to mine. Innovate Dynamics has decided to move the platform in-house, effective immediately. My new job is to run it, and my first official task is to oversee this transition, ensuring a smooth and orderly handover of all assets. For the next hour, I walked them through it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My slides were my weapons. Each one was a surgical strike, backed by data they couldn't refute because it was their own. Slide 4, critical security vulnerabilities. I displayed the email thread where Mark had ignored my warning about the data exposure risk. This vulnerability, which I believe was dismissed as a minor UI glitch, left your client's PII data exposed for 72 days, a direct violation of your own security SLA. Slide 7, system stability and unplanned outages. I showed them the server logs from the holiday weekend when the billing system went down. The root cause of this 36-hour outage, which cost our finance department an estimated $200,000 in delayed invoicing, was a S. Error patch approved without proper technical review. I looked directly at Mark. He stared at his hands on the table as if he'd never seen them before. Slide 12, support ticket resolution inefficiencies. I put up a chart showing that 85% of all high-priority tickets over the last 6 months were ultimately resolved by a single analyst. My analyst ID was circled in bright red. Your team's support model appears to have a single point of failure. We'll be correcting that with our new, fully staffed internal team. It was a bloodbath conducted with bullet points and pie charts. They were silent, stunned. They had no defense. I was using their own failures against them, quoting their own reports, displaying their own emails. I had every single receipt. Finally, Mark found his voice, a weak, desperate croak. "You can't just do this. We have a contract." David Chen spoke for the first time, his voice like ice. "We do, Mark, and our legal team has reviewed it thoroughly. Clause 11B, termination for cause in the event of gross negligence or repeated failure to meet service-level agreements. Stephanie has prepared a 100-page document outlining over 40 such instances in the last 6 months alone. Would you like a copy? It makes for fascinating reading." Mark sank back in his chair as if he'd been physically struck, defeated. I clicked to my final slide. It was a simple list of names under the heading, Initial Transition and Knowledge Transfer Team. The first name on the list was Leo, the brilliant, underpaid junior developer from Mark's team. The second was a sharp support specialist who deserved a promotion 2 years ago. I'd already sent them both official offer letters from Innovate Dynamics that morning. They had both accepted within the hour. I closed my laptop. The meeting was over. "We will begin the data transfer protocol at 4 p.m. today," I announced to the silent room. "My team will need full administrative access. Please have your CTO coordinate with me directly." I stood up, gathered my things, and walked towards the door. As I passed Mark, he looked up at me, his face a mask of utter disbelief and raw betrayal. "Stephanie, why?" he whispered, the sound pathetic in the heavy silence. I paused for a second and looked down at the man who had dismissed me, patronized me, and stolen my work. The man who told me I wasn't cut out for the big leagues. "You said it yourself, Mark," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion, a flat, final statement of fact. "It was a team effort. I just decided to build a better team." And with that, I walked out, leaving them in the ruins of the kingdom they thought was theirs, and stepped into the one I had just built for myself. The silence I left behind in the fishbowl was a living thing, more powerful than any shouting match. I didn't linger to watch the fallout. I didn't need to. I could already picture it. The frantic, whispered conversations, the panicked scrolling through contract clauses, the dawning horror as they realized the safety net they thought they had was an illusion. And I had been the one to pull back the curtain. I walked down the hall to the corner office that Innovate Dynamics had assigned me for the duration of the transition. It was stark and temporary, but it had a floor-to-ceiling window with a view of the city, not a cubicle wall covered in faded corporate memos. I plugged in my laptop. The quiet hum of its high-performance fan, a stark contrast to the wheezing, ancient machine I'd left behind. David Chen appeared in my doorway a few minutes later, holding 2 cups of coffee. Not the burnt, sludgy stuff from my old office kitchen, but real, fragrant coffee from the artisanal place downstairs. He handed me one and leaned against the doorframe, a slow, satisfied grin spreading across his face. "I've never seen Mark speechless before," he said. "I think you broke him." "He was already broken," I replied, taking a sip. The coffee was perfect. "He just didn't know it yet. His entire department runs on a system of plausible deniability. I just made it implausible." "Well," David said, raising his cup in a toast, to a new era of plausibility. Your access protocols are being enabled as we speak. The keys to the kingdom are yours. The kingdom? For years, I had just been a serf, toiling in the fields, fixing the aqueducts, and keeping the castle from crumbling, all while the lords feasted inside and claimed the harvest as their own. Now, I held the keys, and my first act as ruler was to open the gates for the other people they'd left outside. That evening, from the comfort of my own home, I set up a video call with Leo, the junior developer whose name I'd put at the top of my transition team list. He appeared on my screen looking nervous, his background a messy bedroom, the universal sign of an overworked and underpaid tech employee. "Leo, thanks for taking the time," I started. "No problem, Stephanie or Director Walsh," he stammered, fidgeting in his chair. I smiled, a genuine one this time. "Stephanie is fine. Listen, I'm not going to waste your time. I've seen your work for a long time. Specifically, the refactoring script you wrote for the legacy image processor 6 months ago, the one that cut server load by 30%. I also know you were never credited for it." He blinked, surprised. I just pushed it to the repository. I didn't think anyone noticed." "I noticed," I said, my voice firm but kind. "And that's why I'm calling. Innovate Dynamics is building a new in-house engineering team, an A-team. The people who actually build things, not the people who just talk about them in meetings. I'm leading it and I want you on it, not as a junior dev, as a systems engineer, with a 40% pay increase and a mandate to build things the right way from the ground up. No more patching broken systems. We're building the new one." He was silent for a long moment, just staring at me through the screen. I could see the years of being overlooked, of being told his work wasn't a priority, warring with the opportunity in front of him. "For real?" he finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "For real, Leo," I confirmed. "I'm not building a team, I'm building an arsenal, and you're exactly the kind of weapon I need." He broke into a grin, the first genuine, happy expression I'd ever seen on his face, and it transformed him. "When do I start?" "One down." The final, pathetic shoe dropped around 11 p.m. that night. An email notification lit up my phone. The sender, Mark, the subject, a misunderstanding. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity, like revenge, is a powerful motivator. I opened it. It was a rambling, desperate masterpiece of narcissism and self-preservation. "Stephanie," it began, "I think we got off on the wrong foot today. There's been a serious miscommunication, and I feel that a lot of things were taken out of context. You and I were always a great team, and I believe there is a path forward here where we can both benefit. Your new role is impressive, and it shows the potential I always saw in you. Let's have a private conversation, just the two of us, and figure out how we can turn this into a win-win partnership. I know I can make it worth your while." He still didn't get it. He thought this was a negotiation. He thought he could flatter and bribe his way back into control. He thought I was the same quiet girl who would nod and accept his platitudes while he stole her credit. He thought he still had power. I took a screenshot of the email. I opened a new message, addressed it to David Chen and the head of Innovate's legal counsel. I attached the screenshot and wrote a single line. "For your records, please ensure all future communications from my former employer are routed exclusively through legal. I consider this matter closed." I hit send. I didn't block Mark's email address, I just muted it, let him scream into the void. I had a kingdom to run. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the sprawling city lights. Each light was a possibility. My whiteboard, which I'd brought from home, was already covered in architectural diagrams and project timelines for the future. The past was a closed-door conference room in a building I would never have to enter as an employee again. The game was over. And the funny thing is, they never even realized I was the one who had been setting up the board all along. So yeah, to all of you out there fighting the good fight in your cubicles, documenting the failures and waiting for your moment, it's coming. Just be ready. And while you're waiting, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Because the best revenge isn't just living well, it's building your own damn empire and hiring all the other talented people they were too stupid to appreciate. Thanks for watching.